speak up a little bit, normally, louder than you would normally talk, that'd be awesome.
And then we'll go. So just wait.
There's room for you up here if you want to join the front row. Wink, wink.
Yeah. We find that those that will learn the most. Really.
Oh, sweet.
That's why I'm here.
So.
That's why I'm here.
That's why you're here. Yeah.
Okay. So it's just we're just loading up here. Davis, what's up, buddy? We're about to do it live and give out the book. So Donna, you already have the book, so you don't need one. But you're more than welcome to get other swag. We're giving things away. So better write your names down. Davis. Yes. All right.
Okay.
So what we're doing here, everybody, is we're just letting everybody filter in into the seats. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. 15 people in here right now. And so they're grabbing some lunch here. Sorry, no food here online. No food online here either. But we're just waiting for people to just come inside. And then they're sitting down. We have a little bit of agenda. So don't worry, we'll be for Facebook. We'll be stepping back here so you'll be able to see us from there. And then we're going to do a raffle real quick for the Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crushing It. And then we'll keep rolling. So James, you entered yourself in, buddy, into the raffle of the Gary Vaynerchuk book. Okay. Did everyone put a business card in the bowl? Because we'll be giving out some swag. We'll start off with the Gary V Crushing It book. Oh yeah, if you don't have a business card, put your name on the post-it. For those of you that are a minimalist, there is wine, so it's completely it's consumable. So.
Something for everybody.
Yeah, we don't want to deny anyone. So on the side here, just carrying on to put ways that you can contact us anytime afterwards. We're obviously on any form of social media. The one thing that we tell people is we don't run a marketing agency. We're just practitioners. We're using it. We're involved with it. So we're getting a feel of what's going on in the community, our communities online. And then we're figuring out how to use it then locally, just because we have our own businesses that we run here, and we are looking at connecting with people in order to have an impact. So, should we start? Should we jump in?
Yeah, let's jump in.
So let me get the bowl. There's someone else. O'Malley's and PB. Oh, PB and Jam.
For marketing, yeah, absolutely.
PB and Jam, are you trying to get another entry in? Is that what you're trying to do? I like that. If you have your phone, you want to pull it out, you want to live stream this, you want to record it. I do not mind my face being all over the place. I'm a little faint, but we'll let Carrie Ann pick then for, Amy, hold on. Let's put you in there, and Matthew.
Hi, Pam.
Pam Jackson.
Pam Jackson.
We'll put you in for also an entry for Gary Vaynerchuk's book, Crushing It. No, we already got Amy. Amy, you're about to get 2. Sorry about that. You only get 1. Matthew. All right. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with this, how many of you heard of Gary Vaynerchuk before, by the way? 1, 2. Okay, so basically nobody. So he is a guy that basically built his dad's business from $3 million to $60 million, focusing on using YouTube. He was a wine guy. He would drink wine, just taste it and spit it out, but he would be the one that he would say things like, it tastes like gummy bears, it tastes like dirt, and then he started his own media company. And so he has a guy that basically follows him around, and they vlog. And so he came out with a book, and then he had a bunch of people that used basically the tools of social media, and has some of the most amazing background. So it's all inside this book, and so I'm giving it away. So I bought 5 of them, so I don't need 5. So I told people, and then there's Chris. So then we'll give it away. All right, everybody. Everybody else that comes on is, Charity, Chris. Hopefully I can read my handwriting later. Well, hopefully you can read it. Charity, Heidi, what's up? Charity. Okay. All right. Here we go. Chris, I got you, buddy. All right, so you pick it out.
Pat.
Pat, all right, buddy. All right, Pat gets it, everybody. You can now drop offline. But of course, you want to stay. We were talking about bridging the gaps of generational, generational gaps in the workplace. Okay, all right.
Thank you.
So, you want to introduce yourself and thank everybody?
Yes. I'm Carrie Ann Connedy. I work here at Shank. I work with Shank. And I do human resources consulting, marketing, business development. And beyond the traditional accounting services, tax services, we have advisory services, business optimization as well. So I am on that team. So I do human resources and have the opportunity to work with a lot of extremely knowledgeable community leaders, and I really enjoy it. I just started here at Shank December 4th of 2017. So I'm new, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about my personal experience and share my story of coming on to Shank, to this company, and what it has been like for me, and the feelings that I have tied to my experience. And I hope that we can engage and learn a little bit about how we do it the Shank way, and how that can hopefully influence you to inspire you to incorporate some of those tactics in your businesses as well. So I want to tell you that Sherman and I are also ambassadors at the Wausau Region Chamber of Commerce. We really love our community and we love engaging. So this is just another opportunity for us to get together and collaborate on what we're passionate about, and what we want to share the love for what we know. We'd love to share what we know with other community leaders. Sure.
All right. So what we'll do is we'll just do really quickly jump through basically what is the generational gap, because I think a lot of you are familiar with what that is and how it exists and kind of the cumbersome things that come out of that. So why don't we just jump right in. So anyone that's online, if you guys have any questions, feel free. Those that are here locally, just raise your hand. Just whatever is on your mind, just let us know. So before jumping in, I guess, into the other slides, is anything on your mind, like top of mind when you saw this, that you're like, hey, I need to make sure I know about this when it comes to the generational gap? Not everybody at once.
I think it's just because there's so many different generations now in the workplace than there's ever been before, and everybody is communicating in a totally different way. My coworkers communicate via Snapchat, and they're wondering why I don't see how can you leverage that, and how can you communicate across all generations that are currently in the workplace.
Okay, great.
Excellent question. And I want to highlight, so Nikki, can you tell us who you work with?
Yeah, so I work for QPS Employment Group. We are a staffing agency on Grand Ave here in Wausau.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? So we'll definitely be talking about communication. That is a big part of what we're going to address today. So if we jump down through this, I just like this quote. Let's see, does anyone have good eyes and has a bellowing voice? Would you mind reading it?
John or Dean?
John? He's not chewing.
Those leaders who accept that it is not about which generation is better, worse, right, or wrong, and instead embrace how each generation is different, are the ones who always win the recruitment and retention game.
And we find that that's a big part of what Carrie Ann's going to address a little bit about retention, hiring, and such an important part of what we hear right now from a lot of business owners that they're struggling with. So right now you see the different generations. How many of you work in a setting where you have literally a traditionalist all the way to a Generation Z? So Generation Z is basically somebody right now, they would be about 23 years old. Okay, so over half the room. All right, so then you are familiar with the generational gap that already exists. So one of the interesting things here, if you look at, so we gave you the worksheet to kind of walk along through it, and we'll go through the ages. So if you look at a traditionalist, half of the workforce that's a traditionalist actually served in the military, which is phenomenal. So their loyalty, they're extremely loyal to employers and to individuals. One of the biggest things for them from a product standpoint that came out was, as you can see it, the car. That became freedom for them. That became their outlet to be able to go see things, see other cultures. And then you jump from then the traditionalists down to the baby boomers. And they are born in 1946 to 1964. This is a very unique group because it's the largest population. Those that are nodding their heads that are baby boomers, you think you guys are the best generation. And for those that are younger than you, we have a hard time arguing with that. So one of the big things for baby boomers that came out for them was the television. So it became, that thing has evolved tremendously from black and white to color. And then remember, it was the old knobs, and you had to tune it in with the big one and the small one. And you had the punch buttons. Then also the remote control came out, and that thing was fantastic. That allowed you to do a lot more things. Plus, a lot of attention moved then from the radio to television. It was a phenomenal time. The Generation Xers, which is where I find myself, we're kind of the in-betweeners when it comes to and we didn't grow up with cell phones, we didn't grow up with the internet, we didn't grow up with computers. To a certain extent they existed, but they didn't exist for the personal person. And then we learned how to go from peck and hunt to type. But for us, it was a little bit later in life, so we're used to going through this change. The big thing for us in technology was the personal computer, the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, and trying to get everyone to have their own computer. And then finally, we come to the last two, the X and the Zers. These are the ones that get complained about the most. They kind of get a little bit poo-pooed on for their attitude in the workforce. But a lot of it comes down to, this is the Generation Y, is the way that they were taught and educated. So this was the first generation that it was all about group teaching. Some teachers that were a little forward-thinking actually started getting rid of desks and started having them, so no longer were you individualized in the row, you now were at a team desk and you sat in front of maybe in a four-square and you started doing some collaborating. And so for these people, they are all about teamwork. They enjoy that kind of atmosphere. And it really comes down to how it was in elementary school for them here in the United States. And so one of the things that they don't like right here is anything slow and boredom, because for them, they grew up in this technology era. The Zs are even worse just because they have everything at their fingertips.
And the Zs are actually known as the I generation, like correct. iPhone. They have not known a life beyond having a cell phone, having that instant information at their fingertips at all times. So.
Yep. The internet era. So if you kind of go through this, those of you following on the worksheet, traditionalists were born pre-1945. The most modal thing out their era was the car. They like feedback this way. So they needed none. They don't need to be told what to do, how to do it. They served in World War II. They were in Vietnam. They led men to victory. They don't need to be told what to do. And then you have, we'll get to the communication level later, but baby boomers 1946 to 1964, most notable product, we already went over that one, was the television. Then the Xers, it's basically up to from 1965 to 1980, and that would be most notable for them was the personal computer. Then it became, for the next era, the Yers, it's the cell phone. That's totally transformed things. And then for the Zs, the most notable thing for them, it's the internet. So that's what they grew up on. Plus, it's still evolving where it is today. And then, so now that we're familiar with the various generations that do exist in our workforces, here's how sometimes they approach communication. And the biggest thing is how they look at work and life. So this is one of the biggest struggles, I think, for a lot of employers to understand, is that you no longer can incentivize one way. You no longer can motivate one way. You no longer can recognize employees just one way. You have to start having a multifaceted approach in order to hit all these different generations.
Can you go back to that slide one more
Yep.
time? Actually, one more. So right here, when you're talking about varying your approach to communication, you know, when you go to your physician and they ask you, it's now a routine that they ask you, how do you best learn? They want to know how to best communicate with you, how to show you. They have your health, their best interest, is for your health. And so they are asking you that question to be able to communicate with you in the best way that you can learn. So this is a really great example of what that looks like for each generation. So that's just becoming more common, is to figure out exactly the best way to communicate with whomever you're speaking with and working with directly. Go on.
And this is totally evolving, so understand that for us, if you're a Generation Xer, how many of you still actually leave voicemail? Okay, the last hands are going up. How many of you, instead of leaving a voicemail, you just text someone after they don't pick up and just say, give me a call when you get a chance, and so you just leave a text? Okay, so even the way that we're evolving with voicemail is completely changing. And if you think about Gmail, you think about the iPhone, how long has the iPhone been around?
3 years.
10 years.
Oh, 10 years.
Just 10. So the way that we, and so think about like the BlackBerry, which was the push notifications of email. And remember, they were called a crackberry because people were addicted to these things. And all of a sudden, work then was able to go away from your traditional brick and mortar. And so people even have evolved on the way that they respond to email. Before, I remember when I was, this is now back in college, it's like the early 2000s, getting an email was a big deal. I responded to everything. Even if it was spam, I opened it up. I was like, great, I have an uncle in Nigeria, fantastic. And he's got millions of dollars for me. He did not. And so it's amazing how we've come to this far where how many of you have hundreds, if not thousands of emails unread in your mailbox? Okay. Because now we've come to an era where we only want what's important. So I'll go to this section.
So with talking about bridging the generational gaps in the workplace, I want to draw attention to some solutions. Right? So I'm going to tell you about my experience in joining Shank, and I've been here since the beginning of December. So when I was hired, first of all, before I was hired, I went online. I mean, I looked at LinkedIn. I looked at Facebook. I did my research. I checked out the website, and I was like, is this organization aligned with what I believe in, my values? And I really did my homework on them. I essentially was preparing to interview them before they interviewed me. So that was important to me because I wanted to make sure that my commitment to Shank was the best place for me and where I would be happy. So I had a really great interviewing process. I had an opportunity to meet with many members of our team in all of our offices. So I went to Appleton. I went to our Appleton office. I went to our Green Bay office. I went to our Manitowoc office and had the opportunity to meet with a lot of wonderful people. The orientation process was thorough. I was provided with, from the get-go, the resources that I needed to be successful here. And I was comfortable. And I think that is very important that when you're recruiting and when you're onboarding, that you're making your employee feel comfortable. You want them and they want you. It's a very reciprocal relationship. I was also, when I joined the HR consulting team, I was paired with a individual, Deb Pagel, who is really a legacy in the industry, okay? She has the experience. She has so much value, and I felt, what an opportunity. What an opportunity. I'm a millennial, and I have the opportunity, to work with Deb Pagel. It was like, whoa, mind-blowing. I was that excited. And so we have paired together. Now, within Shank, we have an industry team focus, which makes us very unique in our industry. We're industry leaders because we have a team that focuses on business optimization, accounting. We have trucking and logistics team. We have specialists that are designed to know everything there is about the industry. Like, we have teams that are millennials and boomers, and we're all working together and learning from each other. We bring history and future and merge them into magic. And that's what is so great. So I've had the opportunity to be working with Deb Pagel, and she's very knowledgeable. We have coaching meetings. She is accountable to me, and I'm accountable to her. And we believe in the success. We know what the best kept secrets are, and we want to get that word out there. And so she shows me the history of the things that she has learned in her career, and is streaming them down to me to help me be successful in my job.
And Karen, didn't you had mentioned the other day when we were talking that even like some of the senior leadership that's traditionalist by age and by seniority, they still are a part of the organization in giving back.
Right. That's absolutely true. So we have individuals within our firm that aren't partners anymore, but they have stayed on, and they are very, very much involved with our operations. They are a team. It's like a lifelong thing. It's legacy, it's commitment, it's longevity. It's because they believe in our team and what we're doing. So I think it's a really great niche. I think having the opportunity and showing your employees when you're recruiting them on, the opportunity that there is to learn from the legacies within your organization, and how do you pair them well? It's mentorship. A lot of what I have the opportunity to do with Deb is mentorship, and she takes me under her wing and she teaches me the things she knows, but also she allows me to teach her. And I really think that's something special. Not all organizations have that dynamic where that's an opportunity, but if you can implement that and encourage that cohesive collaboration within your team, within the multitude of generations that are in the workplace right now, magic happens. And facilitating that and that conversation is, if there is, I'm going to use an example. On LinkedIn, I saw a colleague of mine who had worked at Line Tech for 19 years. 19 years, that's pretty great. There is something about Line Tech that is keeping him there. There is a loyalty. So what is it exactly that is keeping him there? What's keeping your employees? You're recruiting and you're retaining your employees. You want to retain them. What are those dynamics about your organization that's attractive to all generations? And how can you get them to work together to teach each other what each other knows? Each person is an individual and has many different characteristics and knowledge. The wealth of knowledge that we have within our organizations is phenomenal. But do we always tap into it? No. Is there opportunity to tap into it? You bet. And sometimes when I go to Scott at Line Tech and I say, Scott, what is it about Line Tech that keeps you here? He's going to say, whatever, they're great. They've been great to me. They've been great to my family. I feel like they're family. There's a relationship. There's an emotion there. And perhaps, that's something that perhaps Scott can talk to Tim that just came into the organization and pair them up and say, this is why I've been here for so long. Like, this is why I love working here. And get the relationships going. Get the mingle within your organization and pair up multiple generations to create relationships. That's what, communication and relationships is the cohesive piece, right, that keeps things going, keeps relationships growing further and further beyond just an everyday hello within your workplace.
So a question for the audience, so that way it's just not us talking to you.
Yes.
What do you think keeps people at their job?
They feel appreciated.
Okay. What else?
Respected.
They have a clear purpose.
clear purpose.
Purpose, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think not just what you said. I mean, instilling that feeling of family.
Okay.
Ability to use their passions.
Ability to use their passions, Holly said.
Opportunity for growth and development.
Okay. Anything else?
Give that a culture and benefits.
Culture and benefits.
Anything else?
The trust factor.
No.
Just being able to make a difference. I guess that kind of ties a few of those in together, but
I'm going to say impact. How's that? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
yeah.
Anything else? So it's fascinating in this list. None of it's income. None of it's money. But yet, everyone that volunteered something was of a different not everyone, but there was multiple generations that commented here, and none of loyalty had anything to do about income. But I think so many times entrepreneurs, business owners think that if they throw money at this problem, it's going to change. And so we'll talk a little bit about later, but that's the thing about it is, how do you show this to the community? People talk about it maybe, but if you let's say you have employees of let's say 50 in a community of 100,000, which we live in, how does anyone even know any of this? It's a show me world. So people struggle at finding talent and keeping them. It's purely on the front end. It's how you're hiring, it's how you're describing the job, and then it's how you're actually treating them. And the reality is right now, with loyalty, is that it's very transparent. That if you tell me from the get-go you're all about recognition, and then I find within 6 months there's nothing of that, then I know that there's a disconnect. And so the moment that you lie to someone, you've already just planted the seed of doubt that you are who you say you are as an employee. And if you're not the business owner and you're just one of the employees, the same thing functions for you. If you've fibbed or you've given a little bit of embellishment on your resume, you said, hey, I know C++, and in reality you really don't know how to code, they're going to find that out pretty quickly. So I think it's very interesting how a lot of times as businesses we think loyalty is driven to people's salaries, their hourly wage, and it's purely based on what you're giving to them. Tim.
You know, the interesting part too is if you're looking for a job and you go out there, very few job postings talk about any of that either.
Yes.
So there's a disconnect if the companies are talking about the money and the qualifications and like the logistics of it, and they're not talking about that piece of it.
And like I said, you're interviewing them and you're scoping it out, and that's important to showcase those things. And then when you come on in and you talk about them further and get a little more information about it.
It reminds me of when they had it's a story. I don't know if it's really true, but it's when they had sailing back in the day, Christopher Columbus kind of era, and they had a newspaper ad for people. They said, low pay, hard work, might die. So anyone that came on was all about adventure. And I wonder how many people have joined the Navy because they could see the world. That's what they got in on. They knew that it was going to be grueling, they knew that it would be tough, but they had no problems because they knew they were going to see the world, and that's what they're all about. So, as you think about, we're going to talk a little bit about retention, think about how your job descriptions are being seen out there. Is it just those bullet points of, we want you to have this and that's about it? Oh, and by the way, we have good benefits. The problem with good benefits is that, what does that even mean? How's that transferable? Tim might think that $1,000 a month for health insurance is a great deal. Somebody else coming from a different employer might think that $200, that's a good deal. Or that healthcare should just be free to begin with. That's probably what a millennial thinks. They want everything free. So we'll talk about that later. Yes, so continue.
Another thing I want to add to that is when when you're joining a company, you know, you're sometimes you're not always understanding what your total package is and what that looks like with your benefits and with your paid time off, and you know, how does that match with what you are looking for, you know, in an employer. So that is one thing I wanted to mention too. But I want to ask you, as far as retention, what are you currently doing when in your hiring process to aid your retention of that employee in the future? I know that last week I was at a meeting, at a roundtable meeting, and actually the topic had come up is, well, I'm trying to hire new staff, but it seems as though I can't keep them. And some of, you know, most of what I'm seeing is that they're millennials and they're lazy. Okay, so, and this isn't once but twice, you know, in 1 week, right? We had talked about that. What do you do about that? If you're noticing that trend, because it's a trend, right? We had talked about that. What does that look like? How are we looking to turn that around? Nikki?
It's really about, what we do is it's about training, not throwing everything at them, and really saying, here's the process, and then explaining that entire process. So here's where we're going to start. Here's what the training is going to get you to this level. Then this is the next level. And in line with that is promotional opportunities. So they know once you've aced this, then this is the promotion, and these are the other jobs that you're going to learn on top of that. And it really puts a full structure out for new employees. And they know what they need to do, and they know where they're at, so they can either speed up or slow down that process. And we do one-on-one meetings once a month to really review that. Are you on track? Are you not? How can we help? And so forth. So I think it's really about laying out that map and have it about training.
Dean?
In sales, we call that setting proper expectations, and it requires good communication and continued communication.
Yeah. Expectations, coaching, communication, engagement. Tim?
You know, so I mean, in my own business, I do coaching, so I'm coaching actually a painting one right now, and just having some of these issues. And so what we did, or what we're doing, is so it's kind of bridging a little bit of this. So you know, when you come into an organization, usually as an employee, you're saying day one, and here are all your expectations for the next 6 months. Well, you know, there needs to be, for the retention piece, especially with generational gaps, there needs to be a conversation about that. If I'm the employee coming in on first day, there should be some questions about, and what would you think success would be in 6 months as well. And so what we're doing is tracking those, and actually consciously being okay with those being different. I mean, as like a CEO or a manager, I might need metrics to be part of your 6 month thing, but maybe, you know, John Smith, who I just hired, you know, he might be a lot more worried about, I mean, he can still deliver on those things, but he's going to be worried about that. Or he's going to be gauging my management style or his success on that. And so, and to come into those, you know, on a bi-weekly, monthly, however you want to do it, basis, and you talk about these things, you know, you write them down, but it's a two-way. I think it's becoming more of a two-way retention versus I'm the employer and you're my employee, and this is what I need you to do, which is kind of what it traditionally has been, right? You have a performance review based on what I, as the employer, told you I need, and now we're seeing that, or I'm seeing that kind of, these things are starting to creep into that, if you will, which is great, you know, where I'm the manager and I might ask, so how do you feel? Do you feel respected in the workplace? Do you feel like you have a clear purpose of why you're here, et cetera, and you can have those on there.
Right. Needs both ways.
Correct.
Yes.
So one of the things that that we've implemented is the one-on-ones. So I have 9 people that we meet for 20 minutes a week at the same time, and there's 3 questions that are asked. What's your accomplishment this last week? What's your goals for this next week? And how can I help you? And it's their time. They can always get a hold and talk through it. And I think that has really built a better connection in the communication flow. So that's been helpful within my team. as far as those one-on-ones, 20 minutes max, do not go over concept. And there's always a communication flowing. That seems to be helping from all the different generations.
And that kind of hits on exactly kind of what Nikki had talked about. Was there's a process there, right? So it's set. It has an agenda to it, and specifically for your perspective, it's their time, and so that becomes extremely important. So what the problem is that sometimes what leaders sometimes do or managers do is they allow this one-on-one time then to be, let me tell you then what you're doing wrong. So even though we have this agenda of these 3 bullet points, this is how you're not pulling your weight. And so instead of the employee walk away going, oh, that was really valuable, they walk away going, now I have this huge list of stuff I need to do. And so it becomes unproductive. It's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. And plus there's a way for both the coach, manager, and the employee to be prepared to have that conversation, especially because they know that those 3 questions are going to be asked every week, right? So there's that. And people like to prepare for those one-on-one meetings with their coach.
Excellent. So the other thing that I would say when it comes to the retention issue is I look at the pool of people you're drawing from. That's probably the biggest struggle for a lot of employers is you're picking it from cyberspace. You think just because you have a place that they can apply online that's good. So it's basically like going out into the ocean and casting a net out in a fish frenzy. You might get tuna, you might get mackerel, you might get a swordfish, you might get a dolphin, you might get a shark in there because you're pulling from anywhere under the sun. And so what you want to be able to do is identify what's the pool you're pulling from. This reminds me of Southwest Airlines back in the 70s realized that they had people wearing some really kind of weird polyester uniforms, but they wanted them to be super peppy and super happy. And guess who fit that model? Cheerleaders. So they stopped recruiting anywhere except high school campuses and college campuses where these girls are used to wearing uniforms. They're used to getting an entire crowd excited, and that's only where they hired their stewardesses or their flight attendants, whatever they're called today. And so it becomes extremely powerful for you if you don't have a direct relationship with UWMC, with the technical college here. It's not tech anymore. It's
NTC.
NTC. Mm-hmm. Sorry, whoever's there. And then or UW Stevens Point. You should have direct relationships with those particular schools, those guidance counselors, so that way you're getting exactly what you're looking for. Because guess what? If I'm a student, the reason why I use YouTube is because I can find exactly what I want. And so when they look at the job force, they want exactly the same thing. I want an employer that can show me that they're going to appreciate me. I want to see a culture that is focused on it being more like a family. They're going to bring me in. They're going to give me some one-on-one training. They're going to help me develop. They want to see that. And if you think about it from a college kid's perspective, or if you're a career changer, you do not see that at all. It's completely empty space out there. So although employers are saying, I don't know why we can't find any talent, if you look at their job postings, you look at how they're actually recruiting people, they have no relationships, they're finding it from anybody, and they don't actually have anything that they can show for in a world that is completely show me. Did you want to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll jump into this that I think is so this is one thing that I think kind of hits to this idea about loyalty. What time are we at, by the way? This one reached that.
20 minutes.
Okay. So we have enough time to just jump into this. So when it comes to just recognition, I think this general approach makes sense. But I think right now we live in an era of obviously overstimulation, so you have to be very careful on who you tag publicly and who you don't. And so let's just be careful on social media. Don't assume everybody that's a millennial, everyone that's an Xer or Yer is comfortable with that kind of capacity. Never good to make assumptions, as you're all aware of. So one of the things that I'm going to jump here and we'll come back to this is from a oh, there it is. There we go. You got a lot more awesome stuff to this.
I added.
So one of the things that I think that Carrie Ann brought up in a perfect example of working with Deb is YouTube is a phenomenal tool. that companies are not utilizing. And the biggest one is that Carrie Ann can ask questions to Deb, and we can now get documented Deb's experience on video. Extremely powerful. So that way when we hire another person in 10 years, because the company's still going to be around in 10 years, we still have all that intellectual information still stored on our YouTube.
So although Deb, eventually someday is going to retire, we are building our company history on YouTube. Okay, we can do that, and so can you. So you may have questions on how to do that. That's what Sherman could probably help you with that.
Yeah.
But so you can really build your company's history. You can tell your story on YouTube, and it's not just a channel. It's really a network where you can create your story from the beginning, and it evolves. It evolves over time, and you can build that, and you can structure it, and you can put out there to the what kind of world? Show me world, right? To the show me world exactly what you want people to see. You want what you want people to know about your organization.
And so when it comes to YouTube, I know people are like, well, I don't like video, I don't like the way my voice sounds. Yeah. I get it. Not everybody's gonna be comfortable being in front of a camera. What you're trying to eventually get to, though, is having like a library of private videos that are just for in-house. And that's the beauty about privacy and public and friends, is that you have a multitude of ways to be able to post content online that doesn't get out to anybody. So if you want to be talking about specific clients or specific metrics that are only for your business, you have the ability to do it here in that format. Now, if there's some things that you want to be able to showcase, let's say it's a client appreciation event. See, I spit there. You want to show a client appreciation event, you can now do that publicly and then show people, guess what? You know how to respect the clients that you have because you had them all come over to the Wisconsin Woodchucks game. You had 100 people there, all sponsored by QPS. It's a phenomenal way to be able to show exactly how you respect people. The other one that I'm going to jump down to, and then Carrie Ann can jump in on LinkedIn and Instagram, is the value of Facebook business pages. Number one is your website. It's great, but more people are searching on Facebook to find exactly what they want because it can be updated instantaneously. There's a snowstorm. I'm not calling up Dean to update my website. I'm just going to post out instantaneously and a tweet, and then guess what? Offices are closed today, too much snow, or we're going to go skiing. Something along those lines. And so that becomes extremely valuable that you can have a public business page for the community. You can also have a private one to recognize Tim. It's his birthday. Happy birthday, Tim. And that way everyone inside our organization knows that it's Tim's birthday. It doesn't have to get blasted to everybody in cyberspace. Because when it comes to people's birthdays, some people are very private about that information because it is literally your birthday, right? So if it says, hey, you're 40 years old, I now know your birthday. It's February 2nd, and I can just do the simple math of 40 would be 78. Okay?
Mm-hmm. And also, with Facebook and your company web page, is when you're looking for reviews, testimonials, that sort of thing, the likelihood of someone in the community going to your Facebook page first to rate your business or their experience with you is higher than if they're going to rate you on Google. So that's really changing. That's changed quite a bit. So you are putting out to the world, really on your Facebook page, what you want the community to know about you. So we're talking about, I'm going to mention LinkedIn here too. So with LinkedIn, we're talking about generational gaps and really how do we bridge that and how do we merge the generations to work together and to collaborate. There is a way to really leverage social media to be able to do some of that, to be able to highlight, you've got John here who's going to be working with Lonnie, and this is what they're up to. They're working on this project together. This is how our team works together. You're promoting it within your organization, and you're sharing with the community that you are taking an initiative to bridge that gap. John, I got to ask you a question. So, not to pick on you, but I really have enjoyed meeting you, and thank you for coming today. So, I'm just curious your perspective on on that type of approach? What has your experience been with working with a millennial? How has it been? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's terrible.
Terrible.
They don't want to sit down and tell me.
So, what are you trying to talk to them about?
Well, what I expect from them and their performance based on those expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about improving, and also how can I help as their manager for them to perform better.
Sure.
What do they need from me to do better?
Okay. And it's been a little rough. What's been the most difficult part?
Well, it's the communication, having a clear understanding, and how we communicate.
Okay. So
you're serious that it was terrible. I mean, it's tough.
No, just kidding.
Oh, okay.
So let's kind of focus on that. I mean, I think experience in true life stories is really important, and we can focus on the social media aspect of it. But I want to take John's personal story and experience and talk about that a little bit.
Quick question, what business?
Good with that.
He's asking what business you're in.
Non-profit management.
Which can be a little difficult sometimes
So
to
I
get
deal
people's attention in
mostly
general,
volunteers.
right? So, yeah. There might be a question.
I'm just reading. There's a couple here. You can keep going though.
Okay. So, what are some things that could help John in his communication?
Is it a planned meeting, like they know in advance, or is it, hey, we got a few minutes, let's talk?
Well, if there's a serious problem, it would be kind of a spur of the moment, but
Sure.
generally an advance notice.
Okay.
So they can prepare, I can prepare. Ask them to prepare. And
Do
this is
you
what
know-
we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah, and do you get to know them? Do you know them as an individual
Oh,
and
that's
some
so-
things
that's-
about them?
I think that's really the key, building that relationship.
Okay.
You have to have the
Yeah.
rapport with
Okay.
them.
Right. So it kind
Rather
of
than
goes
having
back
to
to
be a
tying
number.
that relationship part into that
Oh, yeah.
communication. Yeah. So I mean, everyone has different experiences. We can learn from each other, which is really unique. So if there is an opportunity in your organization where you're having a really solid communication that's going very well, you have a team that's working extremely well together from multiple generations, then how do you highlight that within your organization to promote it more so and show the community what you're up to and how it's working well for you if it's working well?
So, interesting thing that I would say, number one, is sometimes there's individuals, it doesn't matter what generation it is, they kind of wear it as a badge. Like, I'm not on any social media. I say you're an idiot. It's like somebody bragging to me that they don't have email. Well, good for you, you're a moron, because now no one can get in touch with you. So the thing about the younger generation, or the generation that grew up with any kind of communication, to them it's all the same. You send me a text message, you send me a voicemail, you give me a phone call, you talk to me face to face, you send me an email, it's all the same because that's the communication level that they're communicated to. That's the way that they saw you growing up. They saw you on the phone, they saw you getting onto email. They viewed you communicating on a whole multitude of levels. And so the idea that somebody says, oh, I don't need to do that thing, they're missing out. So here's one of the opportunities, and it doesn't mean that you need to take selfies and take pictures of your food and post it. What you are missing out is the opportunity to monitor someone not from a stalking perspective, but let's say, for example, Deb and I, we're gonna have a meeting one-on-one, and I just quickly look at her feed on Facebook. We're connected, or even on LinkedIn. And I say, hey, I saw that you shared on LinkedIn that article about human resource management, about retention. Really cool article, wasn't that? And now all of a sudden, we now have something to dialogue on. Or if let's say I'm going to go see Pat, I say, hey Pat, saw that you were skiing in Colorado. Jealous, by the way. How was it? And now all of a sudden, I wasn't obsessing over him. I just saw a few photos. It took me literally a minute of just logging onto Facebook, typing in his name, and oh, there it appears. And so now all of a sudden, I'm connected with him on a different level. If let's say I remembered his son's name, now all of a sudden you're connecting again with a little bit more about these individuals. And it's about building that relationship. Because the more touch points you have with people, the better off you're going to be. And again, think of it from a perspective that every communication form is good. Now, how you use those tools is going to depend on you. A screwdriver is nice, but I'm not going to use it to hammer stuff in. And so that's exactly the way these different tools end up working out. So YouTube, I think for a lot of businesses, is a great way to be able to preserve all that education. So if you're new to the industry, you have no experience. And if you're leaving in the industry, you have all the experience. And so it's a great way to be able to bring these two people together. It could be a formal or an informal mentoring program where basically you can implement and say, hey, we're going to have you ask 3 questions. What was their career path? What did they enjoy? And why do they always pick to work here? Because every day that somebody wakes up, they have a choice whether to work at your company or walk away. Because I can literally start a business with my cell phone. You don't need a brick or mortar. You don't even need capital to start a business these days. All you need is a cell phone and a decent Wi-Fi signal, which sometimes up here is a little difficult. And then I would say the other thing that you can do from a LinkedIn perspective is start showing who you are. So a lot of people don't know that you have the functionality to actually start sharing video on LinkedIn. And so you can share how you're a thought leader in the industry. You can show what are we doing as a community where we had an appreciation event, just employees only. Maybe it was a holiday, that's the word we use, the holiday Christmas, the holiday party, that you invited everybody to come and you just took a photo of that. You took a quick video. Or one thing that I love that the Chamber's doing right now is they're spotlighting one employee. It's a nice professional photo and it's like, hey, here's Susie. Hasn't been here as long as Samantha or something like that. And so it's a great way for me, who's connected to the Chamber, to see who's there and start building a relationship with these individuals.
You're showing who is operating behind the scenes. What you couldn't normally show, you can do business development, you can do engagement from your computer. And that's what is pretty miraculous. I mean, it's magic, really, in today's environment, what you can do to network and meet people from LinkedIn and from Facebook. It's a great platform, and to understand how you can have it work for your business and work to engage with your employees is really essential, because it is such a fast track. Social media is on such a fast track that it's really how we are communicating mostly today in business and networking.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So do you think when you go back to saying people are more inclined to search or review you on social media than Google or a website, do you think that's a generational thing taking over, or why do you think that is?
I think that because most all of us are on Facebook, not as many on LinkedIn, but Facebook for sure. And how many times do we check it a day? I mean, what is the stat, Sherman, on how many times we check our phone in a day, like Facebook or what have you?
500,000.
What was it?
150.
Dean, thank you. You presented on that the other day, didn't you? Yes. So 150 times a day. Well, you're not Googling stuff 150 times a day.
And it's convenience, to Tim's point. It's efficiency, right? So a lot of times on a business page, rate us from 0 to 10. But there's not a lot of websites that say, hey, rate us. So it's just that convenience factor that ends up being the easiest. Plus, if you ask for it,
We'll get
sometimes
it.
they give it to you. All right.
So this is just a really great point. You can't optimize what you don't have. If you don't have, the worst thing that you can do with generational gaps is ignore them. We just need to find a way to work with them and encourage collaboration, mentorship, communication, and overall engagement. So that takes strategy. You need to have a strategy in business to be able to have that be successful for you. So this is, knowing who the game players are, who your partners are, what type of path you're going to take in it, and what is your purpose, and then encouraging everyone to understand all of the components of your strategy for it to be successful, and encouraging everyone to participate. It does take all players to have a strategy work very well for you.
And so I know a lot of people that are in here are like, they're a small business owner, they're like, this is freaking crazy. I already got to run payroll, I already got to worry about driving revenue, I already have to worry about employees, making sure that they show up on time, and you want me to start running a social media marketing campaign. So I'd say here, number one is just take a breath, take a moment. There are certain things that's on your plate as a business owner. The moment that you open your door or just turn on your phone and you start your own business. And there's partners that you should be relying on to take that off your plate. So if you're not good with numbers, there's no way you should do your accounting books at the end of the year and try to get something squeezed out for a W-2 for the part-time employee by January, was it 21st? Don't waste your time. Hire an accountant to do that. If you suck at interviewing because you just don't have the time to read up Google's what's the top 10 questions I should be asking, then get with a company that specializes, that's all they do 24/7 is help you get people to your business. And if you suck at marketing and you have no desire to run that stuff, like the idea that I have a selfie stick like terrifies you, then there is marketing people that will literally run your social media for you. And understand that all these things, there's partners out there that will probably still barter trade. A lot of this stuff is still relatively new in the industry. So for employers to be using, well, especially in central Wisconsin. If we live like Silicon Valley in New York City, or then it'd be a little bit different. But even big cities like Houston, they're still slowly getting onto this. And so the thing that I would tell you is just like the .coms of the 1990s, social media is here to stay. Now I don't know if it'll be Facebook in 10 years from now. I don't know if it'll be Twitter, because I remember MySpace quickly went away. The convenience of engaging with people and building a community online, that's exactly where it's headed. So make sure that you're partnering up with people so that way you don't feel overwhelmed with all of this.
And don't put all of your eggs in one basket. So, Sherman brought up MySpace. Well, if you have all of your connections within MySpace, and then Facebook comes along and you're like, oh.
Now your only friend is Tom.
Now your only friend is Tom. So don't
the only people that
put
laugh
eggs in
are
one
actually we're
basket.
on MySpace. The younger generation was, oh my God, what are you talking about?
What is MySpace? I know what MySpace is.
It was a huge deal.
And learn how to work with these mediums to your market. Know where. I think it's in the last slide. So, one more, sorry. Yeah. Okay, just know where your audience is. So we talked a little bit about researching the company. If you're looking to want to potentially do business with someone, or potentially you're looking to work for someone to help you with your accounting or your marketing, you're gonna do your research on them. You're gonna get the information, whether it be finding them on, if it's marketing, let's just use marketing for example. You're gonna want to look at Instagram. You're gonna showcase your work on Instagram. And another thing I wanted to mention was, I lost my train of thought here. It was about marketing. Kat, I'm thinking of you. So I don't know. I lost it. But so you're gonna want to be on Instagram for marketing. You're gonna want to showcase that, but know where your audience is and work with it.
Dan, do you want to say something?
No, I'm good.
Okay. She put her hand. I totally railroaded her, and sometimes I get in mode. And that's
It
what
was
happens.
checking Facebook 150 times a day. I was going to ask about that, but I'll hold on. You're out of time almost.
Yeah. So the thing that I would say for any employer, that's exactly why Carrie Ann and I decided we talked about being able to do some of these things for the community, just because we are practitioners. We don't run a social media company, although we can put you in touch with some people. Obviously, there's some expertise with Shank, and so we want to thank them, thank Tom, thank Deb. Thanks for letting us come to your space. Thanks for providing the food. So thank you, Shank. And so we want to be able to make sure that anything that we're utilizing, we just want to be able to give it back to the community. We work